What's the big deal?
Where can you get pizza, bread twists, specialty chicken, and more for just $5.99 each?
Is it at Domino's?
He hands off hand-tossed pizza and a marble cookie brownie. He's going!
There's a lot of variety on the radio and at Domino's too, where you can
Mix and match 2 or more for $5.99 each at Domino's.
2-item minimum. Pan pizza, bone-in wings, and bread bowls will be extra. Ask for this limited time offer. Prices, participation, delivery area, and charges may vary.
Welcome to Women Winning Divorce with your host, Heather Quick. Heather brings over 20 years of law experience that advocates and empowers women to achieve happier and healthier lives. Each week, we provide knowledge and guidance on different aspects of family law to help lead women through the difficult and emotional legal challenges that they are facing. Listen in as she discusses issues including divorce, custody, alimony, paternity, narcissism, mediation, and other family law issues to provide insight on the journey of women winning divorce. Welcome to the show. I'm Julie Morgan, and I'm joined by your host, Heather Quick.
Heather, how you doing?
I'm great, Julie. How are you?
I'm doing very well. You know, I looked at this topic and I said, is this even a thing? Are you serious? And I was so confused until we chatted just a little bit before the show. So let's talk about this. Legally preparing children for college. All right. What does that even mean? Help me out here.
So when you obviously send your children off to college, you are thinking of so many things, right? First, there's the college, where are they going to live, meal plans, where are they going to, their dorm life, roommates, all of those things. But I think one thing that we don't think of until something happens is that most of them have turned 18. Very, very rarely are kids going off to college at 17 now. But once they're 18, they are defined as an adult by the law. And so you don't have the same ability to do things for them and find stuff out about them that you did prior to that. For their whole life, by the way. Yes, their entire life that was run by you and organized by you. And so now you need to think differently. And part of this is helping educate parents and women, because I think we think of these things a little bit more or might actually take action on them. But before there's an emergency and in a situation that would really not be the way you want to figure this out.
Okay. All right. Well, okay, we'll get to the emergency. Okay, so, but if you're paying their bills, right? You're claiming them on your taxes, that doesn't give you any rights?
No, not in relationship to, they're at college. So, you don't get to pull up their grades, their bank accounts, or their health records at all. And you kind of think, wait a minute, I am paying that tuition bill. I'm paying that housing bill. I'm not able to figure out if they even go to class or what grades they have. No. And it's a shock because, and an additional shock because right now and for most of their lives, all of their education, everything was available online, and you really have a lot of access to see what's going on, and you don't anymore unless they give that to you.
Okay, but I'm putting money in the bank account so they can go to, get a pizza while they're studying. At least they better be studying at
Right.
midnight, I mean, so all of these things, I look at this and I'm thinking, why don't I have rights?
It's because they're now an adult. And so it goes really to what legally, what an individual, what a school, an institution, a doctor can divulge to you. Now, in regards to the finances and some things related to the school, they'll have certain things for you to fill out because you show, hey, they're on my taxes and I have paid the bills. But I don't think that I mean, that's indicative of maybe they're in trouble or something's going on if their grades are really bad. But I think where it would really be necessary, and something come up that is scary, is related to their health, their physical health as well as their mental health.
Mm, okay. So you're talking about in case of an emergency.
Yes. And, this is not just, this certainly has happened, and, they're far from home. And what if they got in a car accident and you aren't there? They're not going to tell you. They will not release any information over the telephone. If you have a power of attorney, and that's what we're talking about, then yes, but you will have really very little information until you get up there and are able to understand. And there can still, especially if they're unconscious, like there's only so much they can divulge to you, and you're their parent, that's your child. It could be a very, very scary situation for your parent and for them. Even if they wake up, they're like, I don't know what decisions to make. They're still kids.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
looking for your input, and until they can consent and tell the doctors, I need them here, there's going to be very little communication.
Okay. So let's say I'm here in Jacksonville, Florida. My child is going to school in Athens, Georgia. Something happens to them. I'm going to have to drive that entire way, not knowing what's really going on.
Correct. Correct. Yes, unless you have the proper documentation where they have a legal authority to tell you what's going on.
That
I
just
know.
doesn't sit well with me.
I understand. I hear you.
Mm. So before they leave for school, there are legal documents, right, that they can sign?
Yes. And so the primary document is a power of attorney. And you have that power of attorney, which, just with any legal adult that gives you somebody the power of attorney, they can do anything you can do, and they're acting on your behalf. And we include with that a HIPAA release, because there are so many regulations when it comes to healthcare, so that they're already saying, I authorize them to have any and all of my information and make decisions for me. Everything that you've done their entire life, but at 18 that changes.
Wait a minute. Wait. So is this something that your office can handle?
Oh, absolutely. We do that very often. I've given talks at a lot of the, at the local high school, just to many of the, mostly the mothers, say, like, at a PTO group, and offered that, because it's shocking when you realize it. And even when they're away at school, sometimes you are managing, not sometimes, most of the time, managing things for them here, like doctor's appointments, prescriptions, things, because a lot of their healthcare providers tend to stay at home. And now you need that authority to be able to do that. And without it, for the day-to-day stuff, it won't be as frustrating. But I just wouldn't want anybody to experience that, not knowing what's going on with their child, and there's been an emergency. So yes, we do that in our office. And then, yeah, you tell your child, I mean, your child has to come in and sign. We can't do it before they turn 18. It has to be once they're 18, and they do need to still really be a resident of Florida, as long as you are, even though they're going off to college, and they can be living somewhere else, but they still have their Florida ID.
Okay.
Because, and other states will recognize our documents, but, and they last, and usually they don't need to be updated for a few years.
Okay. But this is something before they go to college, after they've turned 18, and they have to agree to this because the law says they're an adult.
Correct. Correct.
Uh,
Had
oh
that
boy.
conversation with my daughter, and she's like, what if I don't agree? And I was like, you want to have that conversation? And she said, no, I will go to the office and sign it. And I say
Yeah.
that in jest, because once they turn 18, they are very empowered by the fact that they are a legal adult. So,
You know what? I can think back, and I felt like I was grown, but I felt like that since I was 13. I would have to probably say, but you know what? That's a different conversation. Anyway, so
Well, and it is. And you know what? I think I really started to think about this and it became real for me um several years ago. And I just was thinking about the mental health challenges that all adolescents have. And just because they're in college doesn't mean they're not still going through that. And almost even more so with the change in environment, new situation, new opportunities to try new things. And I thought, oh my gosh, if my child or, and any other mother was experiencing this, and yes, there are resources at the school that their child goes and talks to a mental health provider, which would be great. You'd want them to, but what if they got prescribed some serious medication and they really had issues that you were unaware of that you want to know? That's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, well, I want to know. I want to be there for them. If they have the stomach flu, yes, I want to help them with that, or they need a little antibiotic, but mostly I was thinking much more serious and that too often children can go away, feel so isolated, and there's no legal ability for any of those providers to communicate with you as parents. But if you have a power of attorney, you can reach out if you're sensing something. And I would never, knowing this now, I want mothers, fathers to know that this is a very good step to take, and hopefully there's no need. But if there were, you might not be in a position to get them to consent to that because they might be in a dark space. They may be having a really hard time.
yeah. So this sounds like this is really an important conversation that you need to have with your new adult.
Absolutely. And explain however you wish, but I think that it's never going to occur to your child like that, that kind of stuff, because that's their whole life, and you're going to call and you're going to make sure that they have their immunizations and that you do all of these things. And I think if you explain it in that way and as to why, then that makes sense to them. The kids they like to tease and jest with, they're like, oh, wow, you have to ask me for something now to have like authority. But overall, I think it's a great way to have that conversation, start to explain you are 18 and we're going to get in that as we go. Like, what does this mean? Because this is different than being 16.
Yeah.
In the law, regarding the law.
Right. And I mean, we talked about, just in case they get into an accident and an emergency in that situation. But unfortunately, this also applies. What if they get arrested or something like that?
Exactly. And now it's real. And now, you are going to be treated as an adult, and, DUI, is a real thing. And we know drinking in college is a real thing. And, it is a good thing. It's shocking to me, but I know that the high school girls don't drink out of anything someone's given them because they're aware that, people will spike your drink, and that can happen. And that's more prevalent in college, that then you could become a victim of, sexual abuse. For our sons, that those are very clear lines and boundaries that need to start way before they go to college. But it's it needs just to be very clear. Very, very clear. And on what is yes, what is no, and it's got to be yes. And then when it turns no, it's just no. And because now you're 18, and rape is serious, and it'll ruin your life as much as a DUI. And there are so many things that can happen and don't, but it just takes one time and one mistake, and that reality of, you now will be treated as an adult. And, I think the conversations cover the same material, but there are different conversations with your sons than with your daughters. Just they are, and it just is. As women, we have different things that you really need to be thinking about, and as men and young men, you really need to have those conversations with them so that they're clear and they really can have a good understanding of what can happen, because college should be the best time. You're getting an education, but you're getting to be independent, and nobody wants any of those run-ins with the law.
Hmm. Oh boy. So many more things that we can talk about here. You're listening to Women Winning Divorce with Heather Quick, owner and attorney of Florida Women's Law Group. When we return, we're going to talk about a lot of different topics. HIPAA, FERPA, one I haven't heard before, and power of attorney. We're going to go more in depth into those topics. Stay with us. Welcome back to Women Winning Divorce with Heather Quick, owner and attorney of Florida Women's Law Group. Heather, what is FERPA?
I know it sounds like Sherpa or some kind of lining in our shoes, right? Or coats, but it's not. It is the federal law. Federal government loves initials, I think. They come up with the longest names probably based on what they sound like, but stands for Family, Educational Rights, and Privacy Act. And essentially, it's protecting your child's rights to confidentiality of their student records and academic information. So you can pay the tuition, but you can't view their grades.
Okay, so that's where this comes from.
Mm-hmm.
It's a law that says that they're an adult.
That is correct. The federal government is like, nope, so sole control goes to the student. So maybe, it's like you're signing the check and then you need them to sign the waiver so that you can look at the grades that should be produced as a result of the tuition check.
My question is, why did they come up with this? Hey, where did this come from? Why?
Oh, isn't that the question? Don't we wonder what they do up there sometimes?
Mm-hmm.
And when you read the statutes and go on and on and on, how did this come up? And I am sure there was an issue of a child at school and then, talking to some, legislator from one state, and then it just worked its way up. That schoolhouse rock, that, a bill to a law to a whatever. So there we go.
Yeah. It only takes one thing, and then that one thing kind of, like tumbleweed, it just grows.
Indeed.
So the child would have to, your new adult, would have to sign a waiver of this particular law.
That is correct. Yes. And a lot of times that is during like the orientation and with that. But you've really got to seek this out. This is the parents' part, because the school's not going to promote this because they don't want all the parents. They've got to deal with all these students. They don't want to have to deal with the parents getting, as well. So you need to seek this out. This didn't come in any, handout of papers that were given to my daughter when she went to college.
That's what I was going to ask you. Like, does that come in the paperwork? You have a lot of stuff to fill out. Does that come in the paperwork that they get?
No, because the school is looking out for that. They're not going to just say, here's a waiver. You really just have to educate yourselves as parents. And then you can go on, for any parents listening to this who maybe never considered this, thinking, are you kidding me? They can go on their child's university site. You can find out what are their steps. Here's their forms to do for filling out, to give to your student, to give you access, or send us all your tax returns and copies of the tuition bills, and then we'll let you have limited access. Like, who wants to do that? No. So
they really ask for that?
Yes, I think one of the Florida universities, that was theirs. You show us the tax return that they're dependent and proof that you pay the tuition, and they'll only give you limited access with that to certain things. So it seems as though you ought to just get this paperwork in line so that you have access.
I'm just thinking about this. My parents would have said, okay, I can't see Your grades, no problem. Give me back that car or something, that's what I'm thinking. But anyway,
Well, and I think most parents, yes, would do that for sure, but and of course then, the kids be like, "Okay, here you go." And so that's why this is for when there's usually some kind of an extreme, I think, situation, and if you're not in the know, and this isn't going to create where the school's going to notify you, but giving yourself some access, because I think we as parents know if something's not right with our child, even if they're not at home. You just have this sense, and then you're going to want to reach out, and that's when you're going to hit a roadblock on some of these things, because then if you're doing this, on your own, and then you see they haven't been to class in like 2 weeks, something's probably going on. I wonder what that is, and then that leads to other things. So that is how I think about this, as these are good things to have, because you're gonna be tipped off some way, even just in your intuition, that something's not right. Something may have happened and they're not sharing that with me. I might need to do a little investigating.
mm. And that intuition never goes away. Never goes away as far as parents are concerned in dealing with their children.
Agreed. I do not think
Yeah,
it does. Sometimes you wish it would, but it does not.
it doesn't. I think about my parents. So yeah. What is HIPAA?
So HIPAA is something, of course, we have all heard about, whether you have controls and access to medical records. And it does. It provides you the privacy, security for your medical information. And it really prohibits doctors, medical professionals from disclosing, any information regarding your physical or mental care. So, let's go back to when, just our access to healthcare and when you've been to the doctor. Generally speaking, what most of us have signed, and I just am going by my own personal experience, is an acknowledgement that they've told you, we go by HIPAA. And so now you acknowledge, hey, I've read what you are doing. And sometimes, especially with some primary care doctors that you're going to see, they're like, you authorize us to talk to this person on your behalf. But that's going to be in a standard situation. I don't know if they give the students that option when they go to the doctor, but it may be on there. But again, we're talking about if they're in a place, they might be very nervous about that. They might not feel comfortable with that. So that's where most of us have come into contact or seen HIPAA and been like, oh yeah, I signed it, 3 pages of these are your rights under HIPAA, and everybody signs that and acknowledges it. And that's really where the doctors, medical professionals, I mean, there are some serious fines and violations if they were to be found to violate those types of things. So they take that very seriously, as they should.
Yeah. And so that's where the medical power of attorney comes into play.
Correct. And that can be separate in and of itself. Thinking of an instance, say, where to me, this is the most common. Like the first time my husband and I went out of town, grandparents are here. We signed very specific medical power of attorney. Yes, you can take, our children to the doctor and make sure they have care. So it's a very specified, you are saying, hey, if there is a medical situation, I give this person medical power of attorney to make decisions for me, to consent for me for certain treatment, and choose providers, speak to the doctors on their behalf, things like that.
Okay. All right. And so it doesn't give control, I guess, over everything, or it's just over specific things.
Correct. A medical power attorney is very specific
Okay.
as to healthcare medical decisions. So you don't have to have the broad scope everything power of attorney, you can limit them. And that is by design, so that you just don't sign one document if you don't want to, that gives someone authority to do anything on your behalf. Maybe it's just a medical power of attorney, which in many of these examples and things I was talking about would serve its purpose.
Okay, so that's medical power of attorney. What about financial power of attorney?
So many times you can execute simply a financial power of attorney, and that is going to give you permission to speak to, financial institutions, banks on behalf of somebody, pay bills, deal with financial responsibilities. Now, when your child's in college, you're on the hook, generally speaking, for all that anyway. You've already signed that. So, but there may be a need, maybe not their first year, but after that, to assist them or, sign a lease on their behalf. So it could be important. You may or may not want to sign it as, co-sign with them, but you might want to help them. So you might want that financial power of attorney that's going to allow you access and information and to be able to assist them.
Okay, if you're looking at both of these, right? Let's say the child says, "Okay, I'll give you one, but I'm not going to give you both." Which one would you say is probably the most important?
I would say, as a parent, the medical power of attorney, because to me that could have just more serious implications for their health and safety, where you want information and input. Nowadays there's always been, but you really would want both. If, say, they're going to do a study abroad or go overseas, just in general, because, guaranteed something's going to happen. They're going to call you at home and you don't have the ability or legal authority to accomplish what they may need. So that would be absolutely important to have both in that particular case. But if we're just saying, which one, definitely have the medical, because to me, that's where, as parents, we just really want information. We need to help them. They need an advocate if it's something serious. And if they're in a situation where maybe they are unable to advocate for themselves or something has happened, I would want to know, and I'd want to be able to help and to communicate with those who are providing them care.
What if your child is going to school out of state, as far as the medical power of attorney is concerned? Does that matter?
No, because they're a resident here. They still have their Florida driver's license. They signed it when they were here, and that would be fine. Now, I know I've had the question that is similar to that. They're out of state, but they've been out of state for 4 years, but they're like, well, I really want the power of attorney, or they want me to have it. You live here as the parent, but they are a resident in North Carolina. I would say, I would like them to seek out someone in North Carolina, because that's where they're the ones who are signing this, not you. You're just being named. So they need to sign it where they are a resident. And because obviously, and then the states are going to acknowledge and accept legal documents from other states, say they traveled somewhere, but they're going to rely on where they were a resident. And that would be the best, most proper way to do that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because I remember you said earlier that, each state recognizes, like you just said, but I was just thinking, what if, I don't know, is there just like this, weird circumstance where it would just be best to have that document for that particular state?
It's really going to be, where they live. So if they're still, technically they're a Florida resident, they reside here, but they go to college elsewhere, appropriate Florida, but they've lived somewhere for a long time. They're like, no, we live in Georgia. We live in North Carolina. But hey, mom and dad, yeah, I'm cool with signing this for you. And I'd like you to have this just in case anything happened. Then I say you need to find someone in that particular state, an attorney. This isn't a do-it-yourself document, just as an FYI.
And because I didn't realize that this was something that your office handled, would they look for a family law attorney there, or?
That I don't know, but certainly, especially if it's somebody, if the parents are here, certainly let us know. If a lot of family law attorneys do that, but always generally, and I say always, but like an estate planning attorney, and it would seem like, oh, do I really contact them? Yeah, you don't need a whole estate plan. You just need some of these documents that a lot of family law attorneys do have, because we're handling this. We're helping you with your children as they're adults and, with the family. So it's not, again, that one's not a definite, but either one of those, someone in the estate planning realm or family law realm, the either one will know who can help you get these, limited document. You're just wanting some very straightforward things for limited purpose. And so that's how I think I would go about finding that person and advising.
Got it. You're listening to Women Winning Divorce with Heather Quick, owner and attorney of Florida Women's Law Group. We're going to take a quick break here, but when we return, we're going to talk about legal preparation. Stay with us. Welcome back to Women Winning Divorce with Heather Quick, owner and attorney of Florida Women's Law Group. Legal preparation, Heather. I mean, all of our kids are perfect angels, right? We've talked about this. It's important, but do we really have to do it?
No, they're never going to get in trouble. I think it's best, not easy, but best to have some real life conversations with your child before they leave home. And if you don't know really what to say or how to address it, maybe this will help on some of those things that you don't even know what would happen, because you're like, I don't even know what to advise them. I didn't get in trouble. And maybe you didn't have any of these things come up that make you think about it.
Mm-hmm. And so this is, again, where having an attorney who understands this, having that person who understands this is why it's so important to ask these types of questions.
Yes.
Yeah. So, even though they're perfect angels, sometimes things, slip, right? And they may get a fake ID or something like that, right?
Correct. And, okay, so let's start with that, because that's kind of pretty much, I think, the first thing, as all your newfound college friends are going to take you to the local fake ID person.
Yeah.
And that's against the law here in Florida. And it is in most states. And the question becomes, to what extent, right? Because, well, what's really going to happen? You need to understand that having a fake ID, it could be, that in Florida, it's a 3rd-degree felony. And you could be charged with, you're facing like 5 years in prison or a fine of $5,000. Yeah. Now that's with possession of a fake ID. Now, if you just kind of misguide an officer or something like that, that might be more on the misdemeanor level. But still, yeah, this is serious.
Oh.
Now,
Okay.
and what this is, okay, so then it's different, because, okay, you get this fake ID made. That's going to be more of a crime than using your roommate's older sister ID, which is still a misdemeanor, but less. And I'm not trying to give tips on, hey, do this, not that. So I don't know, but I'm just saying, because I know none of our kids are listening to this, I can promise you that. But for, the moms out there listening, and yes, it really is a big deal. And, most of our children, hey, there's this deputies at school, and they're looking out for the kids, and they're really trying to help them, and they may be tough on them. But especially if your kids are good kids, and even if they're, have frequent interactions, my experience is those deputies really are just trying to, hey, keep them safe and keep them to not, or help them recognize they don't want a lot of involvement with, law enforcement. So do the things you're supposed to do. Don't do the bad stuff. Then we won't be in your business. So these are serious. And by serious means now you could, as a misdemeanor, get a citation. That's more than a traffic ticket. That is a criminal charge. These are criminal charges, and they will remain on your record. And now you got to go to court. Now you got to tell your parents. Like, you need to have these discussions with your children that this is what can happen. So be clear that that seems so innocent to them and fun and exciting. I will not incriminate myself, but I do. It wasn't that long ago in the dark ages when I went to college, and it is. And you're like, oh, wow, I'm a big deal, until like everybody in the small college town knows that we don't have all these people from Maine, so everybody walking around, these like Maine, they think you're so fancy. But anyway, I didn't always pick up on all that stuff back then, but it's a big deal. And that's why, again, because guaranteed the first thing your child is going to tell you, I didn't know. I didn't know. Everybody's doing it. They don't. They really don't. And they don't want to think about it enough to figure out like really what would be. They're thinking the only thing that's going to happen is the bouncer's not going to let me into the bar. I'm not going to get to buy the drink I want. They're not, and you just don't know. So that's one of the big things that is, it happens everywhere. And if you can at least have that conversation with your child, and in my experience, you may not want to believe this is going to happen. You may not want to have this conversation, but I think that your children will be better off. One, you had the conversation, so that then if something does happen, they're going to let you know, and you can help intervene or not, whatever your choice, but you can help intervene early rather than maybe something's happened. And because they're young adults now, and now they are, out from under the roof, a lot can happen and go bad really quickly, because as smart as they think they are, they've got very limited experience out in the real world.
Heather, when you're preparing a teenager to go to college, there are so many conversations you need to have.
And there's so many, like, I mean, and some of them maybe you've had, about the drinking. I mean, I think that unfortunately, drugs and alcohol, they're everywhere, and our children are exposed. In my experience, which, is limited with young adult children and teenagers, because I'm still in it, it's definitely a sense of responsibility that I did not experience, but we also didn't have Uber when I was that age. I do recognize quite a understanding, like it's just not, they don't do that as much. I know that people still drink and drive. I do. I know that happens because you're intoxicated. You're not thinking it. And I have girls, but there's a lot of conversations, and there's a lot of Uber charges in college that we see, because so they, as a group, are like, this is how, we're traveling back and forth. And so I think that should be the number one. And I went out of town with my daughter, and we had the Uber come, because we didn't have a car taking us places. And and she says I shouldn't, and I don't just get in the car. I do look at the license plate. She doesn't think I do, but then I was sending her, and we do. And it's like, you look at the license plate, you ask them, what's your name? Don't say, hey, I'm so-and-so. And then they'll be like, oh yeah, no. And depending on where you are, and I just think that as parents, they're gonna Uber. So talk to them about the Uber. Preferably don't Uber alone. And always travel with friends, and maybe upgrade for a nicer Uber in certain situations, particularly I say with girls, and that may be sexist, but I think we all know that they can more likely be a victim of the other stuff we're talking about. So anyway, like Uber, yes, like talk to them about that. Talk to them about being smart. You know what? And if you're not going to put money in there for the Uber, tell them to get a job. Like, let's be smart. Don't get in a car with somebody else who has been driving, just because that stuff is going to be around, and it just takes, one busted taillight
Hmm.
One rolling stop and boop, there they are. And officers love to stop and pull over young people.
I was thinking about this. You said, pay extra, for the possibly Uber Black, right? But I was thinking about, and don't worry at that point. Oh, my parents are going to get so upset. I paid such and such a dollar amount for, the upgraded Uber. Guess what? I'd rather you pay that amount than, something else.
Yeah, then the, $5,000 bond, the $10,000 attorney, and the mortification, and you can't even put the costs on what could happen. And I'm just talking minor. Nobody gets hurt.
Hmm.
And that really, I think if you can open that up and be like, do that, um, it's well worth it, because the DUI, those types of things, somebody's always drinking, and so nobody should be driving, and they may have drugs on them, and if it's your car, you're just setting yourself up for so many potential issues that
Mm.
are avoidable. And it just, I do believe it starts with parents talking to their kids in a real way and saying these things are against the law. And if you're caught, I'm a lawyer. You're not in this town. I can't just pick up, I don't have the cell phone numbers of criminal attorneys in other states that I can just be like, hey, I need help right now. Um, and I am an attorney. And so many parents aren't, and so, hey, they may, be like, hey, if you get hurt, I've got other doctors here. I'm a doctor and somebody else's specialty, but you're in a different city. And so it's
Mm.
just, and we're going back to the very beginning, you're an adult. If you're going to make adult decisions, there are serious adult consequences. And it's important to understand how serious those adult consequences can be.
And so that's one thing as far as, getting in trouble with, DUI or having a fake ID or public intoxication, that type of thing. But another issue that you have to be concerned about when we're talking about teenagers and going to college is sexual violence, stalking, harassment, horrible
Yes,
things.
it is. And and that was like, I paid so much attention when we were at my daughter's like orientation to all the safety things and the areas in how they educated the freshmen about, walking on campus and the times of day and things like that. Because that's just like opportunities there. Things happen at parties, things happen all the time across, just like anything else we've talked about, across all barriers of religion, socioeconomic, and wherever you are, local, whatever locality, and you're at a college and there are these things happen. And so, that those are conversations, and they're a conversation that I think is at least important to start. It's different for boys than for girls. And because, when you, as girls, I've always advised them, travel together, stay together, look out for your girlfriends, make sure you're with girlfriends that look out for you, and that nobody lets anybody go anywhere on their own with, in any situation. And with guys, okay, travel together and in a pack, but don't do what all them that, don't get in a situation where something's going down and you're participating, or you are guilty by association. Like, you need to get out. If something's going down in regards to any of these sexual violence or things, that you will be guilty by association and you need to just leave. Is it better to report? Yeah, but I'm just talking about how do we protect our kids at the very beginning, is just know when it's not right, leave. And, for anybody, I think that I'm hoping, the environment's changing some, so that all young people, when they see something that they know is not right, that they are speaking up and they are doing something about it and finding somebody with authority to do that. And that's on stalking, on harassment. And it's whether you're a girl or a guy and something's going on, and helping our kids understand, like, shoot, tell me, like, let's talk about who you can talk to at that school. Who's the best person to talk to? Because most of these schools, they've got people in the dorm, they've got them, in a variety of levels to be there for the students and encouraging them do that and look out for each other, because I think most of the time, we hear about, of course, the headlines and the bad things that happen, but we all know they do. And it's just, stop staring at your phone when you're walking down the street. Be aware of your surroundings. Know what is going on, because it's those who look like they're not paying attention are going to be a victim of theft, of, abuse, but, of, anything that then you don't want to do. We've talked on the one side as far as, hey, we don't want you being the perpetrators of the crime, but we also don't want you victims of a crime either. And, you're no longer, in Jack's Beach, Florida, where you kind of know everybody and you can't go to the store without running into a neighbor for something, and it's different. It's different when you leave, your bubble. And all of our kids have a bubble in whatever area of town they do. They just associate in the same areas and used to that and that safety and protection. And that you're in a new spot now, and it's important to recognize those types of things.
Heather, we're out of time, but any parting words?
Well, one, if your child is really, getting ready to go to school, if they're 18 or about to be 18, reach out to us. Let us help you prepare these very simple documents. We really make that extremely accessible, easy for women who call us, so that we can help them and, help them. Maybe one other reason to sleep a little better at night when your kids leave home, and, we can help you. And, a lot of the things we've talked about today are not things that we do at Florida Women's Law Group, as far as helping kids that get into trouble. But we certainly know, I know so many criminal attorneys in this town, certainly in other areas of the country. If you've had an issue and, you're wanting to reach out referral, we'll do the best that we can to help you, because, these are our kids, and they grow up so fast. So, I really want to help anybody that we can.
Heather, thanks for talking to me today. I'll see you next week.
All right. I look forward to it, Julie. Have a great week.
You too.
Thank you for listening to Women Winning Divorce. We hope you found information to help you navigate your divorce. If you like our show, please take the time to subscribe and provide a 5-star review. If you need more information, please visit our website at womenwinningdivorce.com, where you will find previous episodes and other helpful content. Join us next week as we continue our journey of women winning divorce.
What's the big deal?
Where can you get pizza, bread twists, specialty chicken, and more for just $5.99 each?
Is it at Domino's?
He hands off hand-tossed pizza and a marble cookie brownie. He's going!
There's a lot of variety on the radio and at Domino's too, where you can
Mix and match 2 or more for $5.99 each at Domino's.
2-item minimum. Pan pizza, bone-in wings, and bread bowls will be extra. Ask for this limited time offer. Prices, participation, delivery.